Today, we are going to be looking at the Fantasy Toolkits from Roll and Play Press. These books are designed for both dungeon masters and players to give us more options and choices, and just fun little rewards when we're playing our fantasy games. So let's delve in. The books themselves feel great in hand. They have a great satin matte finish to their covers, which is really nice. I like that a lot. The binders on them are not too big and they're not cumbersome at all. They're not in the way and they're not going to cause any fanning when you have them on a shelf with other books. I really like the durability of each individual page in here. It's thick, it seems resistant to tearing against that binder on the inside the more and more we use it, but also it seems like they are resistant to things like grease from our fingers, maybe from snacks around our tabletops, and spillages, when we knock over a drink. All in all, I really like the physicality of them. I like the size compared to a lot of our tabletop books. It's definitely a space saver. We see that straight away. Like if we have behind a screen, not much space, and we have a lot of like the standard A4 size ttrpg books, that can be a bit awkward to work around, especially when trying to roll lots of dice. These are nice and small and compact, and that is definitely going to save some space. The two books are quite interesting, especially with how they are designed. They are mostly tables which give us choices to look through. There are many different things from names, character details, appearances. You have villainous origins in here, right the way through to things like town features, town crier news. You've got encounters. Still going through the encounters, monstrous features, fiendish contracts, traps and hazards, right the way through to items and rewards and treasures. There's a lot, and that's just in the Game Master's Fantasy Toolkit. There's a lot to be seen. The Fantasy Character Kit itself seems to span through every fantasy RPG class, while also giving you a good amount of information on the fantasy races. You've got your standard dwarves, elves, humans, halflings, but you've also got things like tabaxis, tieflings, half-orc, genasi, Goliaths, and my personal favourite, the Dragonborn. So these books do cover quite a wide range of stuff, which is fantastic. That's the kind of thing that we need, especially in a compacted size. If you're a travelling DM or a player that travels to separate games, these are not going to take up too much space in your bag, in your car, however you transport yourself about. Definitely, instantly a space saver. I think as a dungeon master, they're very good for many different reasons. Planning time can be cut down dramatically with these books. While I was looking through these, I noticed that, especially with like the features with the towns, taverns and inns with town crier news, the bones are in here that you can add meat and flesh to create a world. You can world build from these books. While the Fantasy Character Kit, not just for players, but for DMs as well, creating NPCs, creating adventurers that maybe the party can meet. This is very usable for that. It can create really interesting and unique player characters and NPCs just with a few rolls, or like I say earlier, like by picking out the particular things that you like. You don't have to roll it. If you find something in here that fits your character and what you think you can play better as a DM and or as a player, then yeah, go for it. That spark of creativity that you can get from these, I found really, really interesting. The other thing I found really interesting was that the tables are good for those unexpected questions. We've all been there, especially me as a dungeon master, when players randomly find NPCs to ask them questions, find out lore, and they're like, hey, what's their name? And you have to quickly think of something. The amount of Percys, Steves, Johns, and Barrys I've pulled out, I would lose count. However, if we want to give it something else, maybe they find a gnome and you want to say, okay, it's a gnome that you find. We roll, that's a 10, twang. There you go. You've got a nice comedic name there, one roll, and the game flow carries on. You find a bard who's quite a heartthrob. There you go, it's a 7. Oliver. There you go. Names. I think that that's a great start, especially there, because I think that that's one of the questions we get the most. Villainous Origins is pretty good. I like that because maybe it's not the BBG that we're trying to flesh out. Maybe it's somewhere from a local town or another lesser minion of the BBG. This can give us their origins, organization names. That, for me, again, is another big one where you need to create an organization to give the party a quest or a hook, or maybe they need information from certain people, and you're like, okay, well, let's find an organization that maybe would have more funding or anything behind them that can give them this information. You have the tables here to roll for names, and that for me was like, oh, this is really cool. I like that just off a name, I can then imagine a whole story behind an entire area. So let's say we're looking for a thief society. Your party's rogue needs some information to get into the local manor. Well, they can be pointed in the direction of the Laughing Coin. Maybe that's a tavern where actually the joke is that they're a secret organization of thieves that are underneath it. We can build off these tables with the sparks of imagination that they give us. And like I said before, world building, this is a big one for me. 9 times out of 10, I've been around a table when players maybe want to go to a different tavern or a different shop, and they want to investigate and explore the city, town, the world that you are creating as a group. But maybe you haven't fleshed it out that much. Maybe you weren't planning for them to be as exploratory in that session. Well, we have all these tables here again. And I think that a lot of them, for me personally, I would go, okay, this one fits the best for this area, so I would probably pick one here. But what I do really like, and it's probably one of my favourite sections in the book, is the Taverns and Inns. This, for me, was my favourite set of tables, because I've had loads of players, tons of them, who decide that they don't want to be at the inn that you've prepared, or the tavern that you prepared, or they want to go off on their own and find somewhere else for information. And that's absolutely fine. So, you quickly need to come up with a tavern or an inn. Well, okay, they get pointed in the direction of the wonky fungus. There you go. That is the name right there. Wonky fungus. And then we have this other section down here as part of these tables, which can really help flesh that out. So, we've got the wonky fungus, which we've rolled with our 2d12. So, what kind of appearance have they got? Well, they have a disgusting appearance. What about their prices? Well, they're usually extortionate. And our bar is quiet all of the time. There you go. You've given it some personality. But what about the barkeep? We have another 3d4 that we can roll. Well, the barkeep is known to be a friendly, stylish gnome. And there you go. Add that with your names table at the start of the book. End up with something like Twang from the funny names list. And you've got Twang, the friendly, stylish gnome. And as simple as that, you've got an entire new section of your town, your city, your world. And like I say earlier, like the bones to build upon and flesh out that world building. I really, really like that particular section because it's so versatile and usable in so many different places in the worlds that we build. And yeah, moving on to things like dangerous doors and traps and hazards. Again, if you need dungeon filler and maybe the party are exploring a dungeon that you weren't ready for them to go to or you weren't prepared for because the dice gods decided that that's where they were going all of a sudden. Well, here we go. You've got things like your dangerous doors, you know, iron fresco, a magical scene is embossed into the iron doors. Players must know their history to know the switch location. That's a great time for them to roll a history check. Maybe they gain some lore about your world. Maybe they have something that they can do to help. Maybe spells like legend lore can help here. It's a great little section for those unexpected moments. Same with the traps and hazards. There you go, somewhere that's going to be dangerous, but you haven't thought about it. Hazards to avoid. Combat and injuries, pretty self-explanatory. You've got like your critical hit, and you've also got your critical miss tables in here. They're really cool. You've got deadly diseases and ailments, malevolent curses, divine blessings. But again, another section I really like is this one, the items and rewards. I mean, the whole point of dungeon delving is treasure, isn't it? We search dungeons, we go down there, we defeat the monsters, we defeat the bad guys, and we claim the reward. And that's it. So what if you want to add a few extra things? This whole section is very easy to do that with. You know, you want a potent potion. Well, take a D12. Maybe you're like, yeah, the party wants something extra. Well, they're going to get an opaque, black, thick like treacle or paint in a bottle. What could it be? Who knows? You can build upon that as a DM or a games master, and that's really something that I love about these books, is that it gives you these descriptions that you can be like, oh, okay, maybe it is a potion that allows for oozes to come to life, or maybe it gives you a gelatinous-like form. That's, for me, something that really is a spark of creation that gets like the imaginative juices going. Potion side effects, you can roll on that one as well, you know. So we can take a D20, 14, your body transforms into a random race for 1 week. There you go. That's pretty cool. Gives us just something different and unique, and imagine using this in your planning time. If it wasn't just on the fly and you did this beforehand, you could have all of these unique, interesting things there ready to go, and you've cut your planning time down by absolute dramatic amounts. It's a really cool little book, and I definitely am going to be using it more often than I thought I would when I first opened it. I definitely think that the names alone, that is so useful. Books and novels, that's another one that I think is a great little section. It's one of those areas that players will often go to libraries to find information. They will go to, you know, people's houses, like, oh, what books are on the shelves? What's that person reading? And this is another thing that we can roll, you know. We've got 2d12 there. We'll go for historical essays. We've got the Crown. Oh, sorry, the Age of the Crown. There you go. I think that would make a great book for giving players, NPCs, some lore. Got defining features for the book, which shows how it would look. Another nice little thing. Interior loot. Chests, loot and plunder. Extra quest rewards. I like this one a lot too. So we have all of our like chest fillers, and we have all of our treasure that we can gain, and they've got really cool stuff in here. But these extra quest rewards, I really like this. When you've given it your all and the NPC is really happy with what the job that you and your party have done, you can roll on here an invitation to an audience with the local ruler. It is a formal dinner dance. Again, another little extra reward, and some of these are like more tokens of gratitude, and other ones can lead to whole other situations where maybe they get more quests, or they get more loot, or they get more rewards. I really, really like the Game Master's Fantasy Toolkit. And I think what's really nice was that because this was a Kickstarter back in 2020 by Roll and Play Press, it had over 7,500 backers, and they've put the name of each one in the back of these books. And that's a nice little touch. I really like that. As somebody who does back Kickstarters a lot, I like the idea that they've given recognition to those people. The Fantasy Character Kit. Again, this one is more about the characters we create. So not just like your player characters, but NPCs for dungeon masters and games masters out there. This book is great because it covers most, if not all, fantasy races across all of the classes that we find in fantasy RPGs. Again, we have a name directory near the start, which is great because names can be hard to come up with. And I certainly know that if we can take the stress out of creating a name or a character for our players, it helps them grow into the RP of their characters, but also to enjoy the game. And that's what this is all about, is enjoying the game. So I like that, because I've met loads of players who find creating a character or coming up with names very stressful. The fantasy races there, which we went through earlier, are pretty standard fantasy races in there. Obviously, as games have grown, we have found that more and more have been coming out. So maybe we'll see some updates in the future with other fantasy toolkits or other toolkits that they'll bring out that might have a few extras in there. But as I said, this book tends to, well, it does cover all of the classes from artificer to wizards and warlocks and everything in between there, which is really nice because, again, taking the stress out of creating a character for players when some of us have tons of characters ready to go, but others maybe have a small idea but not quite sure how to formulate that idea. This book helps with that. So if we take, for example, barbarians and mercenaries, you think, I want to play a sword swinger, but I don't really know how to go about putting that into my games master's world. Well, why did you become an adventurer? Instantly, we can roll on this table, or you can pick one out yourself. And you say, born into a pirate crew, you have travelled the world and pillaged many trade vessels. As repentance for your actions, you now complete quests for the trade guild you once attacked and stole from. It's cool. It's a very, very usable quest beginnings that if you flesh that out with your games masters and dungeon masters, you could turn that into a whole story arc. Or if it's not for you, you could read through them all and see which one speaks to you the most, and you could just pick that one. You don't have to roll. And that's what I like, is that this book gives options to create exciting and unique player characters and their personalities. It helps players to take that stress away from maybe not being able to come up with something because it takes a long time to formulate things that they really want to be attached to and they don't want to make a mistake. Maybe they've got a lot of other things going on in their lives, so actually coming up with stuff can be hard to do. We all suffer from that every now and again. So I like that this book just gives us that help, that little bit of extra ideas to get those creative juices flowing. It definitely makes things more interesting because not only do you like pick adventure quests and why you became adventurers, but things like what you wear, distinctive features, meaningful trinkets, symbolic totems, vicious weapons. This is all things you can roll or pick from within this book. They usually give you like a little blurb about the particular class that you're looking at, and also on each page you tend to find a bit about the details of what you're looking at. It then goes on to things like clans and magical equipment, how to manifest your rage if you're a barbarian. That's a great one. How many times do we ask players to describe something and they're like, and they haven't thought about it, which again, it isn't a problem, but maybe this helps them to really formulate those images in their mind as we are describing things, and it gives them a chance to add to the world with you. It's great. I really like that bit. That's really cool. You can make friends and enemies. You can add those in. Party relationships is quite interesting. I think that, you pick a different member of the party, you put their names into the ones that you roll or you pick out, and that's the relationship that you have with them. So I really, really like this book for that. I definitely think for creating NPCs for dungeons and games masters out there, this is also pretty good. If you want a leveled NPC that is an adventurer or has different things, and maybe the party just met them, and by fluke they've fallen in love with this NPC, which happens so often to us, we can then quickly flesh out some backstory or some lore to this character really quickly. So let's say we meet a cleric, since we're in this section here, and the party are instantly like, hey, we really enjoy your company, or you're really useful to us, why don't you come along with us? Well, eventually they're going to ask the questions, where are you from? Why are you able to do the things that you do? Where did you get your gifts? Well, why did you become an adventurer? Let's roll that up. That's a 5. So, once a noble in the Queen's court, you were cast out for discovering their undead secret. With nothing left, the temple was the only place that that would accept you. Now you are gathering evidence in order to unseat the monarch. That's great. Absolutely cool. Another whole storyline that you can create a quest off for your party that just came from creating an NPC. So again, if we added this to our planning time, if we did this before a session, we could cut down planning time dramatically. That prep time would become so much quicker with a book like this in your GM and DM arsenal. Spiritual weapon manifestations. Again, you can roll on here. If you can't think of how you would your spiritual weapon would manifest, you can roll on here. So Your cleric, who is a hunter of the undead and trying to unseat the monarch, well, they have a giant ship wheel covered in seaweed and briny water. That's great. That's so unique and interesting. But what if we did that in pre-planning? Well, now we have a cleric who's either from a naval background or maybe working with pirates, which maybe that ties in with your barbarian. Maybe they know each other. Or, lives somewhere near the coast. I think it's a great little section. But what's cool and is a good comparison between the two is that you have, for each individual class, everything is different. So whereas you had your rage manifestations with the barbarians and you have your spiritual weapon manifestations with the cleric, it all changes with each class. So all the adventuring hooks and why you became an adventurer and the little description stuff change for each one. There is so much variation in this book. And if you take the time to read it and you were like, oh, well, maybe I like a bit of this and a bit of that. Again, you can take bits from everywhere and really kind of like dig deep into what you want to create as a player or as a DM. It is a really nice little thing to have. Just these ideas to play on and to really kind of like have a look at. And I really, really like it. It's very, very cool. It's a little bit thicker, this book, but I think it has a lot more to cover in terms of each class and giving everything the same amount of love rather than focusing heavily on one and not another. And it's just, all in all, a great little book. And the artwork in it is really cool as well. I mean, look at the barbarian there. She's really cool. Your bard singing away. There's a brilliant dragonborn on the paladin. Very much a fan of that. If we can find it. But it's in there somewhere. But it's very cool. Both of them are really, really nicely thought out, really well planned. They're interesting on the eyes. I think I've really enjoyed delving deep into these and realizing that there's stuff in here that I can add to my campaigns that are running now, that I thought I'd done a lot of planning and a lot of kind of world building ready for any questions that my players could ask me. And then I read, especially the Games Master's Fantasy Toolkit, and I thought, oh, I've missed a few things here. Well, now I can use this behind my screen, and it doesn't take up as much room as a lot of the other tabletop system books. This will definitely be coming to games with me. All in all, I think Roll and Play Press have done a fantastic job with these. I really, really like them. Like I say, I definitely am going to be using them in my games, and I certainly know that I have players around my table that will be definitely using the fantasy character kit, because it does take that stress away from creating new characters. I will definitely be using the Games Master's Fantasy Toolkit because there is just so much in terms of unexpected questions that can be answered with this book alone that I think it is a must-have in our toolkits. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.